I'm really pleased now to have Nick Reed with us from Knowable. Nick, would you start by introducing Knowable and the work that you do in the M&A process?
Yeah, definitely. And hello, everyone. Really excited to be speaking with you all today. So first off, by way of introduction, my name is Nick Reed, as William just mentioned, and I run product R&D and user experience at Knowable. Knowable is a contract data management platform. Concretely for M&A, which is actually where we come from, we can help across all stages, whether it's diligence, contract rationalization, post-merger integration, or actual synergy realization. And I'm going to show you some quick examples of that in just one moment. But before doing that, I'd like to share a little bit about my background, because it's actually pretty relevant to our subject today, kind of via serendipity. But prior to Knowable, I worked as a research analyst at Merrill Lynch covering the internet sector. My first boss was actually Henry Blodgett. From there, I went on to business school, and then I was part of the M&A strategy team at Accenture, where I focused on helping big multinationals buy small, often not publicly traded tech companies, leveraging the modeling work I had done at Merrill Lynch. After that job at Accenture, I was at Stanford Law School, where I spent a summer in M&A and tech law, but then launched my own startup that in turn ended up being acquired by a large multinational, and we were still not publicly traded. So all to say, I've worked in around M&A and contracts my entire career. I also came to Knowable via acquisition. LexisNexis, an investor in Knowable, had acquired Ravel, the company that I founded, which was a legal data analytics company, kind of worth noting, kind of like Knowable, but focused on court documents. And so when Lexis made this investment in Knowable, they introduced me to the team. We instantly hit it off. Knowable was kind of doing what my company did, but focused on contracts and businesses. And needless to say, we were kind of aligned on all things. So in Knowable, turning contracts into data is really all that we do. And I think maybe the best way, William, for us to look at this and kind of understand it better is to hop into a demo.
Yeah, that'd be great, Nick, because it hits right at the spirit of what we aim to do, which is to put a spotlight on innovation and M&A and the embrace of new technology and the capture of more stories and lessons learned and how you can do better deals in the future. So we'd love to see it. So thanks for the demo.
Yeah, and I'd love to share it. I also just think, one note is it's an exciting time for technology and contracts, and hopefully this gets you excited as to the opportunity. So this is just our homepage. Hopefully, William, can you see kind of a page of charts and graphs? Yes. Great. So our homepage is really just focused on getting you oriented. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I do want to just click on the second tab, which is where you see the contract data. The important thing to note here is it looks a lot more like a database with lots of bits and pieces of information, not so much like a list of documents. Again, that's because what we do is we turn these contract documents into data so that you can get to something like this, which is the really exciting part, which is the insights and analytics, the charts and graphs based on all the data that we've created. So what we did in this demo is just to show you how contract data can help you at any phase of the M&A process. We've divided it into kind of these 4 buckets of triage, rationalization, harmonization, and BAU opportunity realization. So just bear with me and we'll go through kind of one example in each of these, but maybe you're at the beginning of a deal, you're either doing diligence or you're just about to close. And what really matters for you is figuring out the most important contracts, the most important terms, or maybe how many of the contracts are coming up for renewal next month. So what you see here is a bunch of charts that we've kind of structured all this contract data and we've organized it in a way that you can quickly find the answers to your questions, whether it's how many of my targets contracts are customer contracts or vendor supplier contracts, or how many contracts are coming up for renewal at the end of August. These are those kinds of important questions that often, if we're not paying attention to, we might leave some revenue on the table, because as we all know, when we're closing a deal, everyone, both the target and we, are maybe getting really excited and we forget a couple of renewals. Maybe the renewals need notice and we want to know how many of the automatic renewals have a notice required period. Are there optional renewal notices required? This is all that kind of information that can help us really maximize deal value and figure out the kinds of things that might have taken days, weeks, if not armies of attorneys to do for us previously. Lastly, William, you mentioned kind of war stories. Just one call out here at the bottom is maybe what we care about knowing is whether or not our clients' contracts have MFN language. This resonates closely with me because it turned out when my company was being acquired by LexisNexis, big legal data provider, it turned out we had one contract that had very preferential language for a very big law firm. They were our first customer. It mattered a lot to us to kind of lock them in and have their logo so we could go to other law firms and say they were using us. But they had gotten into the deal really preferential MFN language, and there was no way that LexisNexis could inherit that language. So one of our conditions to close was that we had to renegotiate that portion of that contract for the deal to be consummated. The law firm was gracious enough to do that for us, and we were able to close the deal. But again, these are the kinds of things that in today's environment, William, there's so much pressure on time to close, competition with PE funds and private money that are coming in. To have this data at your fingertips and not have to do the review yourself can really help both kind of allay fears, but also find extra opportunity, which I think would both kind of really matter in today's climate. So just moving quickly to a couple other phases, and I'll just touch on the things that you can do. Maybe what you want to do is rationalize your contracts. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see a side-by-side. But imagine that you've got your contracts and your target's contracts in our system. And what you really want to do is see how much overlap is there. And so maybe what I want to do is say, let me see all of the software, technology, and R&D contracts that we have, and the really material ones, those worth more than $1 million. I'm going to scroll down here and just look at the vendor contracts. And what I realize is that both the target and ourselves, we both have contracts with Oracle, and these are big material contracts. And so maybe where I'm going to focus my attention is let's grab these really big, meaty material contracts and see if there's some opportunity there. And maybe we have preferential deal terms in our contracts, and we think we'll be able to share those with the target post-close, and we're going to get a little bit extra synergy opportunity out of that. So similarly, kind of as closes happened and we've moved out of kind of the early planning phases, we might be trying to harmonize. I spent a lot of time when I was doing M&A strategy and PMI in this harmonization period, but here think about things like from very simple, maybe our target is a little more lax than we are in terms of payment terms. And it turns out that a lot of their terms are N90 or maybe even N120, whereas we're a good, clean company and most of our payment terms are 30 days, so we're collecting cash more quickly. This might be one of the first things we want to really focus on during the integration phase is how can we shorten that cash collection cycle so that we're getting money into our coffers more quickly. And the examples go on, but I think you've all had experience doing this and you know what you're looking for. The last part though, which really does matter, is just a note on opportunity realization. And this is how do we make sure our synergies really happen over the long term? And what I'd like you to think about is when you've used Knowable and you've created this data, you're actually creating an asset, a digital contract database asset that's going to be valuable for a long time. You're going to be able to come back in here, reference questions you have over the first couple of years as you're still dealing with the target company's paper and their deals. You're going to want to come in and find all that information. You may have lost some of their people during the deal close process, but you can still find the information that was otherwise locked in their brains and locked in these contracts that you might not be able to read everyone for. So whether it's price increase rights, minimum purchase obligations, or really any other term you can think of that matters to your business, we can structure that data and make it available at your fingertips such that you can really kind of realize all the opportunity that you thought was going to be in the deal in the first place.
Nick, this is really impressive. But I've got to ask, how long does it take to put in place?
Yeah, it's a great question, William. And to allay anyone's fears, there's a little bit upfront work, but that upfront work is one time. So reach out and get in touch with us before you have a deal coming your way. We're going to set you up with a data model. We'll explain how we work together. And then for our serial acquirers, our repeat customers, it's really fast right now. We can get an environment stood up in a matter of days and start getting the most critical contract data information trickling in really quickly thereafter.
Well, Nick Reed from Knowable, I love what you're doing. This was super impressive and excited to share with all of our members contact information so you can take a look at Knowable and see if it could help improve the performance of your M&A process. So Nick Reed from Knowable, thanks again for being with us.